And a very good evening, everybody, and welcome to Fairway to Heaven right here on Edge of Philly Sports. We're live, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. You know the drill. Wherever you're watching, hit those like, share, subscribe, retweet, follow buttons, whatever it is you do on Twitch or those other sites. Share it out and get as many people involved as you can. This is our second week here on the Edge of Philly network here for Fairway to Heaven. And I just want to make sure everyone gets active with this show. Ask our questions. What's up, Adam? How you doing? I greatly appreciate you tuning in, my man. But just real quick before we get started, we are brought to you here at Edge of Philly by SherryTickets.com. Make sure you check them out. Great moments don't happen. They happen with you in the crowd. Easy to use, no hidden fees. The price you see is the price you pay. Pay less, play more, SherryTickets.com. Use promo code EOP10 to get you 10% off. Or if you need a personal touch, call them 610-494-5050. Not just sports tickets, golf tickets, concert tickets, theater tickets, whatever you want, they got it for you. Family owned and operated since 1946. SherryTickets.com. Again, use promo code EOP10. It lets them know that you heard about them right here on EOP and Fairway to Heaven. I'm your host, Phil Stiefel, at Beard of Knowledge. We got Jason Sullivan, as always, next to me. Good morning, or good evening, Jason. How you doing today?
Dude, I'm doing good, except for one thing. You didn't tag me properly in the post, so it's your first time doing a show, so
it is my first time ever doing a show. My apologies.
I'm just messing with you. I'm happy that Real Golf is back this week. What about you?
Real Golf is excellent to see back. We spent last week talking about it. The whole 200 people that watched the show last week because nobody wanted to talk about the Zurich Classic. And honestly, Jason, I didn't watch 1 second. I didn't even check my DraftKings account, but 3 times the entire weekend.
I watched a little bit on Sunday just because I saw that Rory and Lowry were in the mix, but it was cool to see them win. I mean, I could care less about the whole DFS thing, and I wish it wasn't part of the deal, but that's okay.
Yeah. What is up, Stewie? What is up, Deebs? Kyle is in the house. Have fun at Universal. I'm jealous that you're on vacation and not working. Sue, of course. Kyle never misses a moment to put a Justin Sue comment in the comments of this show. It was boring as expected. Stewie, you weren't in last week, as most people decide not to podcast or do stuff or watch stuff. I still wish we talked about last week that Dell match play over Zurich because team golf sucks. Stewie, I'll go one further. I don't even enjoy the Ryder Cup or President's Cup that much.
Wow.
I don't. Yeah. I mean, I get it, but I don't like it.
See, I like the Ryder Cup. I mean, President's Cup,
why?
USA always wins, so it's not really that compelling. But Ryder Cup's got the whole country thing going. I don't know.
It does not do anything for me whatsoever. I feel like I'm watching a big scramble.
You know, it's funny too. I think it's a lot of that. Is why you feel that way, and I think a lot of people feel that way is because there's no you can play DFS, but I mean, I haven't heard anybody be like, "Yeah, I had a great week." It just doesn't happen in these team events.
Yeah, no, it's the complete anti DFS and gambling type thing. What are you going to bet on the Ryder Cup? You know what I mean? Team USA for -120 or Team Europe for -110. That's your main bet, and I don't like it. I'm glad to get, even though this week is such a weak field, I could care less. I'd rather this week's weak field, and it's getting weaker after weaker. With all the withdrawals and stuff, I'd rather that 1,000 times over than any team event whatsoever.
I completely agree with it too. I was actually hoping that Zalatoris would stay in it just because I was hoping he'd soak up some ownership.
Yeah. I was not going to play Zalatoris this week, and we'll get into this week's the CJ Cup Byron Nelson, TPC Craig Ranch, one of the most boring vanilla courses on the PGA Tour. Basically guaranteed, unless there's a monsoon, that you're going to have anywhere from -22 to -30 this week, which weather we'll play. We'll get into the course in a second. But Will Zalatoris did withdraw today. I saw you share it out, and that's how I found out about it. I was debating, and I was chatting with Len, DFS Writer of the Year, 3-time Writer of the Year, about it. And it's do you play Jordan Spieth or not? And I had an argument to play Jordan Spieth this week. But then as soon as Will Zalatoris withdrew, all of a sudden those Jordan Spieth numbers started skyrocketing, and half the star power is gone like that this week.
I think it's a combination of that mixed with, I think everybody's on the fence about the 10K range as a whole, but I think people are starting to say okay, Spieth with his course history might be the best option. I think he's starting to pick up a little bit of steam. Obviously with Zalatoris being out, that's that's not great for his ownership either. But I think people want to play Spieth. I think
Right.
they're going to talk themselves into it.
Yeah, I'm talking myself into it. So, and here's why: because we've got obviously a very weak field. We got an elevated event next week. We got the PGA Championship in a couple weeks. There's a lot of big events. I think there's an elevated event after the PGA Championship. The way the whole entire schedule plays out, it's a perfect week to take off, obviously. But this week's course, TPC Craig Ranch, is, I said it, it's a very easy course. It's a bombers, even non-bombers succeed here because the fairways are wide open, greens are large, it's easy to hit. There's no water hazards really, throughout the course. It's long, but it plays short. There's so much that makes it easy. So the first thing before the Zalatoris WD, I'm like, well, Jordan Spieth hasn't played well this year. But this is a course, because of how easy it is and how weak the competition is, that originally he was projected like 6-7% ownership.
Yeah,
It's a get right place for him, and you could be different. Now without Zalatoris, that number has jumped all the way up to 11% at this point.
Yeah, that's what I was worried about was going to happen, and it already has. And I think people too are starting to say like they don't exactly resort course. They want to play. I think everybody's going to start their lineups in the 9K. So I think people are trying to get cute and start them in the 10, but 10-9's a lot for a dude that's been god awful for the better.
It is, and I'm hoping that his ownership does come back down to earth. Let me pull it up on my side screen here. He is up to 10.8%. I know earlier this week he was at the 5% range Monday afternoon and stuff like that. Zalatoris was in double digits, and now he's still at 6.1, even though he withdrew. So there's a lot of people that haven't edited their board yet. So, his number will go down, Spieth will go up. But it's such a weak course. And I was reading an article, I forget who I was reading. They were talking about on these weak fields about a strategy. And that's what I want to ask you. There's two different strategies this week because there's no good 10K range. You could hypothetically, and I didn't do this, but you could hypothetically build like a 14-person player pool. Start at like 7,300 and go up to like 92 or 9,300 and just build like a lot of guys clicking 10, 11 times, build some lineups in that range. Or I read this article and it got me thinking, like, just pick 3 guys, whoever, Spieth, you want to talk about Spieth, whatever, pick 3 guys at the top and then pick 20 guys at the bottom and just have 2 clicks on this guy at 6,800, 2 clicks on this guy at 7,100. Like, spread yourself super, super thin at the bottom of the board so that because of the unpredictability, the -30, the weak field, you don't know who's going to get through. What do you get what I'm saying? Like, there's a strategy to go each way. Which way would you feel more comfortable doing?
I think that's what you're seeing people with the ownership numbers. I think you're seeing people lean to that more balanced approach. And like your approach is a little bit different from that. But I think people, for the most part, they're going to start with Siwoo. They're going to start in that range with Jaeger, guys like that, and which is going to make their ownership insane. And it's like, what's one of the worst things in PGA golf, PGA DFS, is chalk Siwoo. Like, that just scares the living hell out of me. It's like, yeah, he could win, but he could miss the cut too. It's like, it just, I don't know. I like that. I like doing that in weaker field events. I don't like playing the top guys just because I think it evens the playing ground a little bit. Like, if the tournament does get to 25 under to 30 under, it's like anybody can win that. Whoever gets hot with the putter is going to win. So I'm not going to spread it that thin where like 2 clicks on a guy, but I think I'm going to be a more balanced build, I think, which most people are going to be.
Yeah, I mean, is there, when there's a weaker field, and I know you care a little bit more about ownership, not as much as others, but a little bit more than I do with ownership. And anybody watching, drop your comments. Again, like I said, make sure you hit the like and share and subscribe button. Do you take ownership? Say a guy, you talk about chalk Siwoo, right? Say Siwoo is 18% and that's chalk in a stronger field. But then you go to this weak field. Is 18% still the cutoff, or would you consider 22% chalk? Because I'm using the Siwoo example, but I'm looking more at Tom Hoge. Because Tom Hoge, he's a very popular choice this week. He was my first bet. Almost 50% of the money I wagered on outrights. I have 5 outrights, but 50% of that money all went on Tom Hoge. Okay? Tom Hoge at 19% sounds like a high number. But in this field, I don't feel like 19% is high. I would feel maybe if he got to 25 or 26%, that one might be high. Do you get what I'm saying there?
I do, and that's kind of why I hate the 10K range this week, because if you look at this range, with the exception of Minwoo and Siwoo, or Sanjay, everybody's high. So it's like clearly everyone's going to do balanced builds this week. They're going to try to get 2 9K guys in there, but there's not really a 9K guy. I mean, you said Hoagie, you're confident in, but there's not a ton of 9K guys that I'm like really super confident in. I think Jaeger's one that I think fits perfectly on this course. He's kind of changed from being a cut maker to a little more volatile, but he can win now, it seems like. So I like Jaeger this week, but I think it's a little discouraging to see how high everybody's getting in that range.
Yeah, but even then, like we always talk about win equity and stuff like that. Like there's not a lot of guys that I think have great win equity this week. Like if you look at it, we've seen a lot of long shots win this year, obviously on this tour. This is a week where a long shot could very well win, but we're not talking about winning. We're talking on the DFS side. So it's like, you kind of gotta change your philosophies to an extent when it's this kind of a weak field.
I don't think so. I think you keep the same philosophies, but that's the thing that's scary, like you just mentioned. I mean, who are you going to start with that you're going to feel pumped to start your lineup with in the 9Ks? Like,
does anyone in the 9K or above have any more chance at winning than, say, another popular outright name is Peter Kust? I don't know if I'm saying that right. Kust, is it Kust or Quest or whatever?
Quest, I think.
Quest. Like, does anybody in the 9K range or 10K range have that much more win equity or win potential than Quest or Lauer or Garrett Higo or, is there that much of a difference?
That's the tricky part. I think the anchor spot is the toughest spot. Honestly, there's a lot of guys at the lower end that I like you just mentioned those guys, but then you get to the top and it's like, which one of those guys are you confident can win? Hoagie's won before, but I mean, like Noren, like a lot, he's got huge ownership numbers. Are you confident that Noren can win a tournament? Are you confident that Adam Scott's like a top 10 guy, but are you confident he can win a tournament? No. Like, it's like, that's the scary part, is that I don't know where people are going to go, which makes me kind of gravitate to somebody like Sanjay, who he's been better. He won in Korea last week. Obviously, last time he won in Korea, I think it was last year or the year before, and then he played like crap when he came back. But I mean, I don't know, at 10%, I'd almost rather take a chance on somebody that like him, who we know can win golf tournaments, who's starting to play a little bit better. So that's interesting to me. Minwoo Lee's the other one too. I know nobody's on him this week at all too. It's like, should we?
Which is weird because he was on my potential player pool, but then he didn't end up I did my first 20 lineups. He didn't end up getting clicked. It's just the way it played out for me. But the ownership percentage on some of those guys, it is a weak field. The same reason I was making to play Jordan Spieth, you can make for Sung J M, for Minwoo, any of those other guys, can't you?
Yeah, and I think not so much Minwoo, but like Sanjay, Spieth, like you've seen those guys win golf tournaments before. You're confident. I'm more confident in them winning than anybody else, which kind of makes me think like maybe that's the way to go.
And it's kind of like a reset week for you. If you're in bad form, this is the kind of course you want to go to if you've had success, because it's easy. Let's be honest. I mean, any course that averages about 25 under to win, it's not hard. You know what I mean? So,
and like for Spieth too, home game, like there's that narrative too. I just wish he hadn't been so god awful. Like he has been so bad. The problem with
you're gonna hate it because I did end up clicking him a couple times.
Which is fine. Like I think I might play him too, but the problem is with Spieth, that what worries me the most is the approach game. Like his approach game has been awful. I mean, he's lost an approach what looks like 5 of the last 6 and 7 of the last 10. Like that's a lot of tournaments to lose on approach. That makes me like he is playing so bad right now.
Out of how many golfers are in this event? 152 guys in the field. Jordan Spieth is ranked 108th in approach in this field. That's bad. That's really bad. But again, these greens are so big. As long as you can hit the shots, you can get on the green. And you mentioned it a few minutes ago. A course like this, a course that's this wide open, it turns into a putting contest, does it not? Right. And Spieth has been better, off and on this year putting than in years past. And this is the first time I can imagine and remember in months that I actually even weighed putting in my model this week. Models brought to you by FantasyNational.com. Make sure you check them out. If you sign up for one of their programs, make sure you let them know Fairway to Heaven sent you. FantasyNational.com.
You just brought up a good point too. Spieth has gained in putting 6 tournaments in a row. Like he's been horrible on approach, but like you can see we've seen Spieth get hot with the putter. It's like I'm almost talking myself into playing Spieth as we go along here.
I did my main 20 lineups. We still got the one lineup we'll build later in this show. And I ended up I didn't have a single click on Jordan Spieth for the first 10 or 12 lineups. But then I was like, I'm getting too heavy on this guy, getting too heavy on that guy. Let me mix it up. And I added Spieth, and Spieth ended up getting 5 of the last 8 lineups I built had Jordan Spieth in it. So I ended up with 5 out of 20 with Jordan Spieth so far. I just think it's kind of different. It's not as different as it would have been, say, Will Zalatoris was still in the field. And I think other guys have withdrawn from this field. I think Charlie Hoffman withdrew. I think there was one other name. Patrick Rogers is out. Charlie Hoffman is out. Yeah, they were the other 2 names. So there are a couple people. I know Charlie Hoffman was a guy people early in the week we're going to talk about this week, but obviously his withdrawal hurt there. Another thing to talk about for this week's event, and we're talking about a birdie fest. We're talking about 25 under par, but it's Texas. What always happens in Texas?
Wind,
weather, out of nowhere. Like an RKO out of nowhere, the wind can pick up out of nowhere. And they're calling for some really shoddy weather on Thursday. Lots of rain, wind. Friday through Sunday, it's just sporadic wind and rain. But Thursday's going to be bad. In a birdie fest contest that's going to have at least one day of bad weather, don't you want guys that have got experience? Like, you don't want to go to, say, someone that's 6,300 that's mostly on the Korn Ferry Tour or, playing sporadically, or a sponsor's exemption, if that weather's going to kick up, do you?
That's a good point too. And that's one of those things that Fantasy National just changed recently, is that you can click on Texas as one of your filters, like Texas courses. And there's certain guys like Spieth, for example, who just play good in Texas. He's from Texas, obviously. So that's an interesting point. And I want guys 100% that play well in Texas, because like you said, wind can kick up at any point. It's supposed to be wet on Thursday. That's another thing too, is pay attention to the weather. See if there's a wave stack that comes along. And I always build anyway for wave stacks, even if there isn't one. So
is there a state that, when we say play Texas golfers in Texas, is there any other state that we talk about like that? Like, we talk about Siwoo Kim on the Florida swing, but we don't talk about Florida golfers in Florida. Like, we talk about, LA with with Max Homa and Colin Morikawa, and that's about it. Like, I don't think there's anything quite like the Texas swing on the PGA Tour.
It's different. It's just different. Desert golf is just different. You see, like, a lot of correlation between desert golf of, like, Australian players and Texas players. It's like there's something to it. I think Texas is probably the biggest advantage of any of the states.
Do you like courses like Craig Ranch, which are pretty plain and pretty, like, don't you expect or want something a little bit more difficult on the PGA Tour?
It's not even the difficulty for sure, but I just feel like I hate more than anything is the no rough. That's my, like, biggest pet peeve for whatever reason. It just bothers me. It's like there's no penalty. You can blast it 50 yards off the fairway and there's no penalty at all. Like, I just don't like that.
Yeah, I agree with you. That makes it very difficult to eliminate certain people when that happens, to an extent.
Right, exactly. And it's like, there's a lot of courses that are like that too. I mean, like, Detroit's like that. Rocket Mortgage, just like, there's no penalty at all, and it's just boring golf to me.
Like, what, I mean, outside of the weather, what is a defense for this course?
Well, there's a lot of water.
Defense outside of weather?
There's a lot of water, but it doesn't really come into play all that much. I think there's 13 water hazards, I think it's 13 water hazards, and then there's 80 bunkers.
But I think it's one creek that just runs throughout the course, right?
It is. And there's 80 bunkers, but it's like, you never hear anybody say, like, oh man, there's so many bunkers, they come into play. It's like, they don't really come into play. It's just, it's better.
The last article I read this week did talk about the correlation between sand saves, that if you're really bad, in the sand, it can correlate to not successful finishes.
Yeah.
But the greens are so big, if you're a solid approach player, you shouldn't ever be in the bunkers anyway, right?
That's what is tricky about this course, is that there's always like well, don't do this, but if you do that, at least, you know what I mean? Like, it's like you just said, that point, like, with if you spray it off the tee, like, well, there's not really any rough, so it's like there's always like a yin to the yang in this course, and I don't love that.
No, it makes it very difficult to. It's. I'm glad we're off of team golf, but this is the toughest week to come out of team golf, because it's just a tough event. Like, this event's been moved around the calendar a few different times. This week is a tough week because you're coming off the team event, you're coming off the Masters, and then you got multiple elevated events and majors this is a perfect week for people to take that break. You know what I mean? And makes it
It's
very
also
difficult.
tricky too because this is another course where course history does not matter here. Like
Yeah.
you go through guys' histories that if they have a top 5 finish, they probably have a miscut too or a T60. You know what I mean? It's like there's no correlation at all.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to get into the the tier by tier breakdown in a second, but a couple quick sponsors here. Make sure you check out phillysportstrips.com. They're running a great promotion. If you want to go see our Philadelphia Eagles or the Green Bay Packers in Brazil, week 1 of the NFL season, check them out, phillysportstrips.com. Let them know EOP, Trend in the AM, Fairway to Heaven sent you. They do self-travel packages, full travel packages, flights, bus trips, not just for the sporting events, for concerts and all different kind of things. Check them out, phillysportstrips.com. We've kind of hit on, the top of the board with, there's only 2 guys left in the field above 10K. We've talked about a lot of the 9K. Real quick, I want to say Jason Day is kind of getting ignored in this event. Is Jason Day a name that you're looking for at all this week? Because he didn't even make my maybe board. And I'm not even sure why. It's just, I didn't see his name anywhere.
No, I'm not looking at him at all. I worry with him because his tee to green game has been so bad. His approach game has been bad too. With him, it's like it's so much. He's gone kind of back to like the old Jason Day where it's like he won here last year, but he was in awesome form. He was, striking the ball really good. It's like this year he's doing it all with short game again, which is not ideal. So
Yeah,
no,
you
no
talk
Jason
about
Day.
course history and stuff like that. You got somebody like KH Lee who's won here 2 of the last 3 years. KH Lee is not a great golfer. You know what I
No.
mean? So, like, what does that tell you about the course that KH Lee has won this event at this course twice? That says a lot about him, in my opinion. There, the rest of the 9K range. You mentioned, and we mentioned Siwoo and Sung Jae, Scott Norman. I think we covered pretty much everybody. I love Tom Hoagie. Tom Hoagie's been playing great golf. And I really, truly believe he's not the longest hitter, but he's a good enough hitter and great with his approach. He's such a well-rounded guy. I really think he could get a win here this week. I highly expect Golf Tip Checkers or whatever that account is on Twitter that tracks everybody's outright bets. I strongly expect Tom Hoagie to probably be one of, if not the most bet golfers to win this event.
If you had to pick besides him, like another golfer that you'd pick in the 9K that is like a staple, who would it be?
DFS wise this
Yeah,
week.
DFS.
Hold on, because like I said, I've done 20 lineups. Let's see here. I went 7 clicks on Adam Scott, 7 clicks on Steven Yeager, 6 clicks on Siwoo Kim, and then 11 clicks on Tom Hoagie. That's out of 20 lineups.
Okay.
So I went pretty heavy on that 9K range.
You did.
Really heavy. But it's also because it was easy to balance it when we get down to the 7K, especially middle, low 7K. There were a couple golfers that I thought were great fits, great plays for DFS this week. So it was very easy to build 3 9K guys and then 3 7K guys to make a very balanced lineup. Same thing with the mid 8s. I built multiple lineups with 4 8K guys. You know what I mean? So it's very doable this week. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 4 guys in the 6K range I played, but combine those 4 guys, there's 8 clicks total.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to have a 22-person player pool, but really stay away from those guys as much as possible.
Yeah, no, I see that for sure. I have a few that I like in this range. 2 are actually kind of contrarian a little bit. I mentioned him earlier. Sungjae Im been playing a lot better. Won last week in Korea, so I like him. Steven Yeager's won. I like him, of course. And then Tom Kim. Is he starting to play better? It seems like he's starting to play better.
I don't remember because I was building this lineup the other day. I kind of talked myself out of Tom Kim. Like my first bit of research talked Tom Kim up, and then I talked myself out of him. And I'm not sure. RBC did gain 4.5 strokes putting his last event. That's really strong. That's what you need. If you look at his last event, RBC, where he finished 18th, Tom Kim, he gained 2.5 strokes on approach, 4.5 strokes putting. The only things that are important. His almost 4 strokes lost off the tee don't matter here this week. So maybe you're right and I'm wrong to zone in on Tom Kim there.
He hasn't been good at all. He's been better, but he still hasn't been good. I don't know. I just feel like would I rather take 12% Tom Kim, who I know can win golf tournaments, over some of these other guys? I think I might.
Yeah, you make a good argument for it. You make it, it's something that I wanted to do. It's just
Right.
something that didn't work out that way for me this week. And I have a feeling that you're right and that it can come back to bite me a little bit not playing him this week.
But then again, he hasn't been that good. So it's
And
tough.
I haven't been tracking his ownership. I'm shocked it's at like
12.
12.8,
Yeah.
12.9%. Was he lower and then the Zalatoris withdrawal kind of changed? I know there was $1,000 price difference there, but once that Zalatoris withdrawal came, I kind of feel like that affected a lot of people's ownership projections.
My kid's breaking everything right now. Sorry.
It's okay.
Um, no, I think it had some effect on it for sure because I think more people are going to want to get different in the 9Ks. So I can see it. I think
All
he
right,
was
let's
at like 8.5 when I looked
okay.
last. So now he's at 11.
Yeah. I got one random question. I know Fantasy National, they're a sponsor of this show, fantasynational.com. When are they going to update their website to actually say Tom Kim and not the other, however his name was pronounced before it became Tom Kim? Come
Like
on,
some of these,
guys. Like, it's been
I know
over a year now. It's time to update his name.
some of these other guys are like that too. It's like, "Wait, who is that? Oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah, that's
it."
Tom Kim. That's right.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
just make it easier for us there. All right, let's
Yeah.
take a look in the 8K because I think there are some good plays. There are 5, 6 names that I really zoned in on here, but I'll let you go first. Give me a couple names here in the 8K range that you really do like.
I don't really like anybody. I'll be honest with you in
Oh,
the 8Ks. I'm trying to. I want to, but there's not a lot to love here. McNeely popped out a little bit for me, and Hubbard probably are my two favorites, but I don't have a ton of confidence in either, to be
I,
honest.
I,
Who do
I
you like this
played
week?
both those in my lineups. Matt McNeely, great golfer this year. If it's a weak field like this, I don't. I
Yes,
think
good
82
putter.
is a great price point for him. If he was lower,
Yep.
he'd be higher owned. If he was higher, he wouldn't be valued. But I do like Matt McNeely at 82 and Hubbard at 81. I'm looking at Keith Mitchell again. I'm right back to the well with Keith Mitchell. Something again. This is going back to a couple weeks ago when Rob was on the show to start zoning in on DraftKings points. Keith Mitchell's second in the field in DK points scored, and that's something to really take into consideration. You know what I mean? If they're scoring, Tom Hoagie and Keith Mitchell, they're the top 2 DK points getters this week, which also goes to show why they're top 30 or better guys as well. You know what I mean? They kind of go hand in hand, and so I'm looking at Keith Mitchell back to that well. I do like a little bit of Dietrich this week. Um, I'm not on KH Lee, even though he's a 2-time champion here. I'm going back to the Napster this week as well. He had a little bit of a downward turn after his win. I think he got a little, overzealous with a very busy
Yeah.
schedule. I think this kind of a field, very similar to when he won his first event earlier this year, weaker field. Um, I'm kind of in love with the Napster getting another W this week, or not a W, but contending for a W this week.
It's interesting. You know what's funny? To go back on your Keith Mitchell point, Keith Mitchell's number 1 in my model, and Tom Hoagie's number 2 in my model. So either I'm onto something, or everyone's going to do the same thing. So
Yeah, Hoagie was 1 for me. Mitchell
yeah,
was 4 in my
yeah.
model.
So yeah.
I'm trying to
So
pull up Jake Knapp, what he's done here. I know since his win, then he went 4th at the RBC Classic, and he hasn't had his best finish since his 1st and 4th back-to-back weeks. His next best finish was at the Players at 45th place. But the one thing outside of his missed cut at Houston, he's still been putting very well. He's still been great off the approach. Most of his bad finishes are because of bad around the green, bad tee to green, things like that. So I kind of feel like he hasn't played in a week or two. I kind of feel like it's a good week for him to get back on par.
it's a get right spot too, like you said earlier. It's
Yeah,
like this is a course where like your game's been a little off, but you can come back and I mean, this is the kind of field where he can win. So I don't
yeah.
mind that.
I 1,000% believe he can win this. It's hard to win twice in a row. It's hard, or twice on tour in the same
Right.
season, unless you're like Scotty Scheffler, and that's
Right.
about it. Did I bet Nap? No, I did bet Nap. If you look at it, my betting card this week, I got Tom Hoagie at 28-1 with a huge percentage of my betting pool. But my other 4 bets, 80-1, 90-1, 90-1, 100-1, because that's kind of the chance you have to take this week. So
Yeah.
Nap's the other guy. If you didn't like the 8K, that means you've got a
Tons in the
lot of
seven
love for the
K.
7K then.
I do for sure.
Okay.
7K. Want to do like the top half of the 7K first?
Sure, let's go top half, yeah.
I have a few plays. Seamus Power is my favorite. He's been really good here. He's been a lot better overall too. So I like him probably the most. I have a bet on him as well. And then
Is Seamus Power like my Aaron Rye
kind of, yes.
to you? You know,
Yes.
I think every event he's in, you've mentioned his name on this show.
I just like it. I feel like how do I put this? I feel like he's a better golfer than he's played. Like he shows it in spurts, but like he's very hot and cold. But I feel like he's the kind of guy that's like not a mainstay, but I feel like he's a second tier guy, and I feel like he can be. He just needs to develop consistency. So I like Power a lot this week. 8% ownership, which is insane to me. So tons of Seamus for me this week.
I went with same spot in my model. His name was right above it. Davis Thompson at 7,900.
Yeah, I like him too.
Yeah. Where else are you in this mid to upper 7K range? Because I have Thompson and Fox, and then everybody else is 7,500 and below that I liked in this range.
Ben Griffin's interesting, good approach game. T14 at the Corrales a couple weeks ago, so I like him this week. Chan Kim's the other one. He's been playing some good golf. 14th at the Valero and 6th in Punta Cana. So I'm hoping his ownership doesn't get too crazy. So
I went right down after those first two names. I went right down to 7,500, where you got two guys that I think have not a lot, but a little bit of win equity. I bet them both. They both modeled out well. One of them's got much higher ownership than the other, but I went Justin Lauer and Peter Quest. Again, I'm going with what you say, Quest, as two guys in that mid 7K range that I like a lot this week.
Yeah, I actually bet Lauer too. So spoiler.
Yeah.
I think you did too, didn't you?
Yeah, I bet both those guys, Quest and Lauer. I do this thing where if I bet you, you're automatically in my player pool. Not necessarily a heavily clicked guy, but you're automatically, because I build one lineup if I can with all my outrights in the same lineup. So yeah, I got Quest and Lauer both at 90-1. So I think they're two, for 90-1 for those two guys and their prices. And Quest is at like 14.5%. Lauer's about 12%. I mean, it's not great ownership percentage, but again, in this field, I think both those guys could hypothetically be 8K, 79, 81, somewhere in that range priced if they wanted to get it right, in my opinion.
I agree. 100%.
Okay.
Who do you like
going further down the board?
Yeah. Go for it.
Oh, I was asking you who you got.
Well, Lauer's one for sure. I agree with that one. Quest too. I agree with that one as well. Matty Schmid has been he's missed his only cut. He missed the cut his only time here, but he is just a guy that has just been playing he's way better. He gets no respect, no ownership ever on DFS, but he's just solid. I mean, he's just been like a T11 at Punta Cana, 21st at Houston Open, 17th at Valspar. Like the guy is, I wouldn't say winning upside, but like top 15, 20 upside for sure. So Schmid's probably my favorite in this range.
I got two names for you. I want to get your thoughts on. The first guy missed the last cut in his last measured event at Punta Cana, but that was his first missed cut, and he had gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 straight cuts made before that, and he has a win a couple years ago on his card. So there is some form of win equity there because he has done it before. That's Garrett Higo. And the next name I'm going to give you that I liked, what did we say beginning? It's a putting contest, right? So generally speaking, in this field, the number one putter, strokes gained putting over the last 36 rounds, guy that you liked a lot this year, earlier in the year, Taylor Montgomery. Don't you want the best putter in the field in your player pool if it's a putting contest?
Yeah, no, I like that play too. He's interesting to me too. He's been a question mark. He hasn't been as good recently, but he's interesting to me at this course too. And I see your point 100%. He's
missed his last 2 cuts, so that's not saying much. But even in his missed cuts, he's been gaining strokes putting. So to me, that just kind of leans a certain way. And there was a stretch, maybe it was at the beginning of last year. Yeah, beginning of last year, he was on fire. He was one of those going from the fall swing 22 to the beginning of 2023. He was one of the hottest golfers on tour. Actually, going all the way back to July. Man, actually, we're going way back. Oh, some of this is Corn Ferry Tour. Okay, gotcha. Never mind. But when he started regularly on the PGA Tour was September of 22. He was on fire for a while, and he just completely fell apart. But great putters on a putting contest, it's kind of important, right?
100%. No, I like that one. Another one that I like is Bramlett. He's been a little shaky recently, but he has a 19th and a 7th here. And he seems like he would fit this course, like a longer guy, not super accurate, but can bomb it out there. Can't putt, obviously, at all, but Bramlett's interesting. I think that's a good price point for him.
Do you think when it's a putting contest like this, that even though it's a putting contest, but it's a get right kind of course, that average putters can kind of putt above their skill level to an extent when they're not extremely difficult putting greens to begin
Yeah,
with.
it's slow to medium greens. I mean, I think 100% that's a good point. I think so much is put into putting. I think that's become like the hot trend of everybody putting so much into putting, but putting is honestly like a weird thing. It's a weird metric. Like it's so hard to
Mhm.
measure. It's like even the worst putters can have 1 week where they putt really well. It's like you see it all the time in like stats. You pull up somebody's stats, and it's like, oh, they've lost 8 of 10 in putting, but like, oh, look at the two. Holy crap, the one they gained 5, the one they gained 9. It's like there's weird weeks where like guys just putt well. So I feel like so much is put into putting, and I think
Mhm.
it's a little overrated.
Yeah, that's why normally most weeks I never even put putting into my model, just because it's such a street. Like I almost like I don't use the mixed conditions model, but if I did, I would do it where like I'm doing approach the last 36. In a
Mhm.
course like this, I might go the last 16 rounds solely for putting alone, just to see who's the best putters most recently. How about the 6K? I mean, we've pretty much butchered and said the 6K range is pretty useless. Is there any 6K guys that you like?
There's not a lot, I'll be honest with you. Smalley's interesting, played a little bit better. 6 last week at Punta Cana. I feel like it's a similar style event, so it's interesting to me. Not a lot else, to be completely honest with you. Do you have guys you like?
I mean, I starred a lot of names, but I ended up, like I said, I only played 4 of them. Um, the name that stuck out to me a little bit, he's been better putting. He's a good scorer when he's on. Cam Champ, one of the biggest drivers of the golf ball. It's a long course, par fives that you've got to score on, and they're I think all 3 par fives are under 570 yards. He's gotten better with the putter this year. I kind of feel like Cam Champ. I only clicked him twice, but it's a worthy risk reward kind of play. I went with Dylan Wu. Bryce Garrett got 2 clicks. Bryce Garrett's weird. He doesn't play a lot anymore, but he's got to win.
Great putter.
Semi recently.
Yeah.
So I liked him and Eric Barnes. They were the 4 6K guys that I played. I wrote down Chandler Phillips. I wrote down Wallace, Ryan Moore, Silverman. I wrote down a lot of guys, but I just couldn't pull myself to click any of them when I was
My
able to
only
build
thing
so many balanced lineups in the middle.
my only thing with the 6K, please, for the love of God, do not play any chalk in that range. There's nobody that's worth playing that's chalk in that range, which there isn't a
Hold on.
lot, but
I would say who? I mean, Johnny Vegas at 6%, Ryan Moore at 7.5%. Who's Rico Hoy and why is he 4.5%? That's pretty much it.
no, there's not a ton. But
There's
just
not a lot of chalk being played, and
if any
maybe
ownership
that's
goes up
because
at
of the
all,
Zalatoris WD that some of these numbers have come down.
yeah, it could have for sure. So I think so many
Yeah,
people are going to play more balanced, like we were talking about. So
yeah,
that makes sense.
absolutely. Which squeezing in a Cam Champ, a Bryce Garrett, or whatnot,
Right.
you
And you
know.
could still do that. You could still go with a balanced lineup and put one 6K guy in there. You
Hell,
don't have to
hold
do
on, I'm not.
a
This is not a
7K.
lineup build. I'm just going to do a random thing here off on the side screen. Hang on. If I went Hoagie, Yeager, let's say Adam Scott, and Keith Mitchell, so 4 guys 80 and above. If I go, so that put you at, let's still put you at 6650. So you
Right.
could play a Barnes and a Cam Champ and still get away with it, or something like that. Or I guess maybe not 4 guys that highly priced, but you get the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
You can make a balanced lineup and balanced at the top end of that board, and then
Yeah.
still throw one guy in and make it work financially for you.
I
So
agree.
I just wouldn't give. You say don't play chalk. I say anybody from 7K, 72K, and
Mhm.
down, just don't click them a lot. Don't
Yeah.
don't overexpose yourself to any one guy low on the board. That would be my piece of advice in that area. Instead
Yeah.
of just staying away from the chalky guy, don't overexpose yourself to one guy. Because if they're cold putting or they're on the wrong side of the wave or the weather picks up, then you're screwed and you get hurt yourself pretty bad.
Yeah. No, that's smart.
Yeah. All right. Real quick, another one of our great sponsors here is well, it's not really a sponsor. It's an event happening May 11th, the Streetlight Kitchen and Bar in Drexel Hill. Come on out. Phillies pregame, postgame live. We're giving away 2 free tickets to Phillies game. The postgame and pregame live show will be there. The crew will be there. And breaking news, I will be there as well. Just shaking hands, kissing babies, doing whatever it is I do. You could buy me a beer if you would like. I'd greatly appreciate that. But not too many because I'll have to drive home. But yeah, I'm going to go back to my old stomping grounds. Check it out. Streetlight Bar and Kitchen, May 11th, pre and post game live. It's Saturday, 2:30 starting, guys. Let's build a lineup. Let's do the lineup build. Brought to you by Fantasy Golf Pod. Check out Chad and the boys Wednesdays at 4:20, cracking beers, talking DFS golf. We're going to build a lineup. Again, what's the record on the lineups now?
It is me 7, you 6, guess 2.
7, 6, 2. Gotcha. Yep. I won last week. I had actually a pretty solid lineup considering I did zero research. It was a 5 out of 6, but it was well north of 600 points. It was a really strong build last week.
Yeah, it was very solid. So I will be picking first because you won.
Okay.
So I am going to go with somebody that we talked about a few times. I'm going to go Peter Quest.
So right off the bat, taking one of my guys. That's okay. It's all right. I can accept that. I'm just going to go then because that's where I was going to start. Actually, let me see here. Well, if you're going to go Quest, I'm going to take the other 7,500 guy that I like right off the board in Justin Lauer and take that off the board.
I like that. I'm going to go next. I'm going to go my main man. You already know, Seamus Power.
Yeah. You didn't have to worry about me taking Power at all. And you know what else I'm going to do, Jason? And I don't know whether I'll get to it tonight or I'll do it first thing in the morning. I'm going to run a poll on the Fairway to Heaven Twitter page. So make sure you're following us. The Fairway, the number 2, Heaven _. And we're going to get votes from everybody. Who built the best lineup? And we're going to take a poll to see who's going to win. And we'll see if the viewers, and we should have been doing this all along, to see if the viewers guess whose lineup is actually better. So I'll work on that later night while I'm watching the Sixers lose their season. So you went Quest, then Power. I went Lauer, and I am going to follow up Lauer with Davis Thompson.
It's a good pick. I'm going to stick with the value plays. I am going to pick Joseph Bramlett.
Bramlett's a guy I read, and I just stayed off of him. You know, I don't know why. It might be one of those moves that hurts me. It might not. Then I'm going to stay down at the lower part of the board, and I'm going to go the Napster, Mr. Nap, 8K. That's my third pick.
All right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go Jordan Spieth.
All right, you went for Spieth. I did. What's that put you at with 4 people left?
I have 2 picks left. I have 8,250 left.
That's really solid. I mean, I'm 3 picks in, Lauer, Thompson, and Knapp, and I got 88 and change left. So this is the thing. You don't have to go super low, and you can build really strong lineups like this. All right, so let's see here. Let me go up a little bit, try to find somebody here. We're going to go Adam Scott at 9,600 with my next pick.
So what are you at now?
So I got Lauer, Thompson, Knapp, Scott. It leaves me 8,500 left with 2 picks to go.
Okay, I'm going to go with – I got a weird feeling. I'm going to go Tom Kim.
Tom Kim. I think it's a really sneaky good play, a guy that people should be more on, and he just isn't. And I like it. I like it a lot. All right. We'll go. I'm trying to figure out the best way to go to leave the most money on the table for my last pick. Guy, we didn't talk a little or too much about this today yet, but I think he does fit well. Had a solid, okay week at the Masters, but we're going to go Ryan Fox with my next pick.
Ryan Fox, okay. For the last pick, I'm going to go with somebody we also did not talk about. I'm going to go Taylor Pendrith.
He was on my board, Taylor Pendrith. But then just the way it played out with the dollars as I was building the guys I loved, Pendrith just got skipped, and I got through about 16 lineups. I'm like, oh, I didn't play Taylor Pendrith. I'm like, well, it's too late to put him in lineups now. So I kind of just skipped over him this week. But a really solid golfer, especially in the weaker fields. What does that leave on the table for you? Your $6 pick? $100. Okay. Yep. All right. So I'm going to leave a couple $100 on, and I'm just going to go with Tom Hoagie, my pick to win the event for my last pick. So that's it. So we're going to run a poll on Twitter. Jason's lineup of Quest, Power, Bramlett, Spieth, Kim, and Pendrith versus mine, Lauer, Thompson, Knapp, Scott, Fox, Hoagie. And if you notice, we made 2 lineups completely different there, and none of them we didn't have to dip. Who's your lowest guy? Mine's 7,500. My lowest guy in my line.
Bramlett, 72.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have to dip too far down for this, and I love that philosophy this week, not having to dip too far. Hopefully, I win again. So, what's going on with the one and dones? We didn't do one and done last
We did
week
not
with the
do one
team
last
event.
week. No, you have reopened your lead. You're up about $400,000 right now. But the real question is that we haven't talked about. Actually, I'm sorry. You're actually up more than 400. You're actually up 800,000.
I thought it was like 750 or 800 or something.
It's 800. So the real question is, you cannot pick Hollywood Hoagie because you have already used him. So
I know. I've been using my notepad as a coaster for my glass of water under the desk, and I just pulled it. I've taken Kirk, Tom Kim, Decky, Hoagie, JT, Cam Young, Fitz, Tagala. I've taken McNeely already. And there's been a lot of events this year already. Mitchell's off the board. A lot of guys I like are off the board. So you know what? I'm going to go crazy here. This is a big reach with my one and done. Because when we get to the majors, I know I won't be taking him. And I don't know whether he's going to completely collapse this year or not. I'm going to go Jordan Spieth for my one and done.
Who I already used. I cannot. I was thinking about doing the same thing, but I cannot.
Yeah, it's really hard to track these one and done. I don't know. Like next time we got to find like a spreadsheet way of doing one and dones, or like put it into a computer program where we track it better. Because
I'll do that for next week. I'll do that. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, like I don't know. Like I can't mentally count, and maybe put like every event that's still to come on this sheet, so that like I can. I'm trying to think about some of these guys. Like, when might I use them?
Right.
Like, who did I take for the Masters in the one? Bryson. Okay. Right. So yeah, I was debating between Bryson and I was debating between John Rahm, guys that you're only going to have a few weeks to choose from. I don't know. I'm going Spieth this week for one and done now.
I'm going to stick with it. Peter Quest.
There you go. A guy that you won't take in a major anyway either, right? So use them up. It's either this week or the Detroit Open or the Rocket Mortgage at the Detroit Country Club or whatever. You know,
he's in good form. If you're going to play him, this is the time.
Yeah, this is the time to do it. How many times? So I had him in. I ended up with a Quest in 7 of my 20 lineups. So that's not bad. And again, like I said, 90-1. You couldn't beat that. I thought 90-1 was a pretty.
He's a guy
pretty solid bet.
I can see his ownership creeping as the week goes on.
Yeah, as more people do their podcasts, as more people talk about them, as more people watch the replay of this, and make sure you hit the like and share and subscribe and follow and retweet button on the show. I can see more and more people. I did not give you this question before the show, so we'll wrap up at the end with our bets one final time.
This
question. Are you cognizant of this question that is now coming?
Yeah, we're gonna cancel this.
Can I ask you, not Rory McIlroy winning, but did Rory McIlroy save his career last week by singing karaoke?
to my favorite song of all time. I mean,
I hate the song. The Sopranos ruined that song for me, and I love the Sopranos. But that moment, all I could think of when I hear "Don't Stop" is the ending of the Sopranos.
See, they play that at the end of Red Wing games, and they always have for a long time. So I think of that the first way. So that him singing between that and between, I don't know if you saw when they got the championship belts, and Lowry put his on, and he told Rory it was a little snug, and they both started dying laughing. That made me like those guys are number 1 and number 2 in my book now.
Yeah, like we've talked about Rory a lot on this show,
Yeah.
Not just this year, but in the last couple years. And whether he'll win a major, whether he'll whatever, is he overworking himself? I just saw a report that he's getting back on the player advisory board again.
Yep.
He got a huge chunk of money, part of the deal with the merger and stuff like that. The thank you money for not leaving for Live, still pennies compared to what he would have gotten on Live.
Yep.
But just seeing Rory sing and do karaoke and, keyword here, have fun.
Yep.
It kind of like loosen the mood. Does it take some of the maybe that reminded him, hey, we're playing golf here for millions of dollars. Let's have a little fun. Do you? I know I'm being sarcastic about it, but do you think him having a little bit more fun could take some of the stress away from his game not being top 3 in the world anymore?
No, I think it 100% can, and I think that's. People don't like Rory for whatever reason now, but like I am not one of those. I really like Rory, and I just feel like that's the biggest thing. I think he's been so bogged down with this whole Live versus PGA thing. He hasn't been able to like breathe for a second.
Yeah, 1,000%. I just love to see it because I want Rory. I do. I want Rory to win again. I don't know if he'll win a major again, but an elevated event or a major like reputation event. I want to see him win one of those events. and we constantly, every week, we talk about what will save the PGA Tour. And Rory in contention. I mean, I know Scotty Scheffler is the best golfer hands down in the world, but he's not a personality. Rory's got the personality. Rory's got the followers. Rory's got the people that hate him or love him.
Yep.
Rory having fun and Rory getting back to what he does best will be good for the game of golf massively over the next 6 months to couple years. I mean, even if he does not complete the career Grand Slam, even if he doesn't win a major, him being back to old Rory, I think it's perfect for the game.
I 100% agree.
Yeah. I'm glad we're on the same page with that.
He's that polarizing figure too. I think we've been talking about that before. He's not a villain, but he's that polarizing figure where you either love Rory or you hate Rory.
Yeah.
Like so I don't know. I think it's
1,000%. 1,000%. I love to see it. Guys, I got one more sponsor read here to give you guys before we wrap up this show. Cherry Law Firm. If you've been in a motor vehicle accident, personal injury, or affected by criminal law, call David R. Cherry of the Cherry Law Firm in Media and Westchester. Personal injury law. Give them a call, 610-565-0300, or go to cherryinjurylaw.com. Let David R. Cherry fight for your rights. Again, 565-0300, cherryinjurylaw.com. Let them know you heard about him right here on Fairway to Heaven on Edge of Philly Sports if you do give him a call. If you lose your bets this weekend, I don't think David R. Cherry could fight for you to get your money back. That is just a side note. When I beat you again, Jason, in one and done, and in our lineup, you cannot sue me with David R. Cherry. Just going to say.
Can I ask one question to you, speaking of beating each other? Who do you think – not really. Our teams.
What?
Anyways, so, okay, you like the Eagles draft, right?
Absolutely.
On paper, what do you grade it?
An A, 100%. Not just because they got the best cornerback at 22, not just because Cooper DeJean, a first-round talent, fell to them at 40, but on top of the draft, Howie Roseman was able to maneuver picks up and down, and he added a 3rd, 4th, and 5th round draft pick next year on top of it all.
I think he added a 3rd from us, right?
I think it was from you, the 3rd round pick. Yeah. One of the picks was from Detroit. Like, Howie Roseman is masterful at trading back, collecting 4 assets, then using 2 of those assets to trade back up. And that's basically what he did. And I think Howie Roseman's ability to maneuver assets, whether it's players or picks, to get the guys he wants, it's fantastic. And I don't know if you how much you pay attention to the Eagles on social media, but obviously there's a lot of national guys that always talk badly about Philly sports. Did you hear Nick Wright? Do you know who Nick Wright is on Fox Sports?
No.
He's one of their main football guys on their morning show, and I think he's got his own show now. And he did a rant on his show yesterday, about that Howie Roseman is the worst GM in football. All he does in the draft is listen to sports takes like Daniel Jeremiah, him, and other guys, and he bases his big board off of what they talk about on their TV shows. And that's why everybody thinks he's great at drafting, is because he just bases it off the popular names that are being talked about on ESPN and Fox. And he went on a 5-minute rant about this. And you could just see the guy, whoever it was the host of the show, just sitting there squirming uncomfortably, like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I just, as a Lions fan, you know Howie Roseman's a good GM, right?
For sure. And you know what's funny is Brad Holmes, the Lions GM, is not a household name. Nobody really knows who he is, but he has proven to be probably the best drafting GM in the business right now. And he gets crap from our media for picking guys that might not necessarily fit the bill. Like, remember last year he picked Gibbs really high? Well, Gibbs is like a top 5 running back in the NFL. So that worked out pretty well. So like, it's just so funny that everybody has these wild takes about GMs at the draft. It's like, nobody really knows. Like, I mean,
you guys, the Lions, just like the Eagles, lucked out in the NFL draft by the fact that no defensive players went before 15. All those quarterbacks went. I didn't, like Quinion Mitchell, our 1st round pick. I didn't do any draft prep. I had no idea who he was. Like, I knew who he was, but I knew he was the best quarterback in the class, but there was 0 chance he was coming to the Eagles. So I didn't do any prep work on him. And he fell to us. I thought there was a slight chance we'd trade up and get Terry and Arnold, who you guys got. Yeah. But you guys were able to trade up to what, 23 or 24 and grab him. Like, you didn't think there was a chance to get Terry and Arnold there, did you?
Well, that's the thing, too.
Now you got Arnold and Branch to lock down your secondary for the next 5 or 10 years. I'm working on a new series I'm going to start writing on the Edge of Philly Sports website One of the main things I'm going to write is my weekly power rankings, and I'm going to start it with my post-draft power rankings. Right now, I got the Lions now up to the 5th best team in the NFL in my power rankings.
I think that's true.
Unfortunately, I did put a little homerish and put the Eagles at 4. I think there's an argument to be made that the Lions might be a tick ahead of the Eagles, but as a homer, I'm not going to put the Lions ahead of the Eagles.
It's funny too. I think there's similarities, like you just said. Like, okay, so you guys got the best corner in the draft. We got the second best. Neither one of us thought we were going to get either one of those guys. So I think that was 2 great picks by both of those guys. And to make it just seems like, so you guys draft Georgia guys, right? Our new thing seems to be Alabama guys. You know what? I love that.
Yeah.
I want guys that played against the best competition, played on these dominant teams. Like, those are the kind of guys I want on my team. So I'm all for it.
You want guys that have played in national championship games and major bowl games,
Against
I know
teams.
I don't like JJ McCarthy, the Michigan quarterback.
Right.
I don't think he's super talented, but I think he's got as good of a chance, if not better, to be better than Bo Nix or Michael Penix or Drake May. Outside of Caleb Williams, there's a good chance that JJ McCarthy is the second best quarterback. Why?
Right.
Because he's played in big games. He just won a national championship game. I just think that, it's a bad place to go to play football in Minnesota. That's
But that's
another whole subject right there.
That's kind of my point, though. Like, you play in big games, but you also play against good competition. Like, you're playing Georgia every year. You're playing Alabama every year. Whoever, Florida, like, you're playing against these good teams. Like, I'll take my chances with Georgia guys.
Absolutely.
Bama guys.
Georgia, Clemson, Alabama. I want those guys drafted every year. Like, yes, we got Toledo, Quinion Mitchell. That's where he went. But the character of Quinion Mitchell is really good. The talent is there.
Yeah.
He was – I don't know if you heard this. When the Quinion Mitchell pick happened, Nick Saban admitted to tampering live on the air. Without – I don't think he realized he admitted to it, but he clearly said, I tried to convince him to go into the transfer portal to come to Alabama.
Can you imagine your 2 starting DBs be him and Arnold? That would have been ridiculous.
Yeah, like to sum up the Eagles draft for you, and we're off the subject of golf here, but most Eagles mock drafts had Cooper DeJean at 22 to the Eagles. We traded up and took him at 40 in the second round, not because he fell because of some personal issue or tape or measurables. He fell because of the massive amount of offensive players that went ahead of him. I mean, because people like the Falcons had to take Michael Penix at the 8th pick. All that stupidity ahead of the Eagles fell to make it a great draft for us.
Yeah. It's like our second pick too is a corner from Missouri. It's the same thing. It's like he didn't have a good combine showing because he was running with a groin injury. So they said he was like 70%. Well, that's a first round talent that we got at 61. So I'll take it.
The combine is the most overrated thing. Like when I see people talk about their 40-yard dash at the combine, I don't pay it any mind. That's like you saying, well, Jordan Spieth was really warming up on the range really well today, so he's going to have a really good round. No, it does not mean that at all. So once I want to see the people in the tournament or on the field of battle performing well in big moments. Tell me Jordan Spieth will play well this week because he's got great experience winning the Masters.
Yep.
Not that he had a good range session. You know what I mean? Same thing translates to football, in my opinion.
Exactly. I agree.
So, all right. So, final to wrap this up, Fairway to Heaven, CJ Cup Byron Nelson at TPC Craig Ranch. I got Tom Hoagie, 28-1. My most clicked guy. He is the guy that I got winning. Jason, again, who do you got winning?
Peter Quest.
As your number 1 pick.
Peter Quest.
Peter Quest. And I like that. That's 1A, 1B for me. Make sure you guys stay locked into Edge of Philly Sports. We've got 5 more shows coming your way tonight. We got the Kelly Green Hour starting right now as soon as we get off the air. We got Birds of a Round Table. We got Chalk Talk with Shane Haff and company. Then we got Sixers and Phillies post-game live. And, of course, I'll be back tomorrow, 8 a.m. for Training the Aim. We got Martin Frank, Eagles beat reporter from DelawareNewsJournal.com, joining me at 8:30 tomorrow. So, guys.
One question. Sixers win tonight or no?
Do they win? I don't know. Hopefully they do. I don't want the season to end yet, but they probably lose tonight. You like to bet a little bit. This is a scary thing that was brought up by my guest Sean Bernard this morning. The Sixers to come back and win this series is only 6-1 odds.
Oof.
Doesn't that tell you that they still have a chance?
They do.
Like the Knicks winning in 7 is 10-1, but the Sixers coming back and winning in 7 is 6-1. Is that not kind of weird?
That is weird.
That's really weird. Really, really weird. And guys, stay tuned. Fairway to Heaven next week. DFS Writer of the Year, 3-time Writer of the Year, 5-time nominee, Len Hochberg will be joining us from RotoWire, Senior Golf Writer, Sirius XM Fantasy, and lots of other things. He'll be joining us next week. And then for the PGA Championship, Matty Miller of the Draws and Fade podcast, he'll be joining us as well. They do great work over there at Draw and Fades. And they're also Philly region guys over at Draw and Fade. So we'll be having them on the show in a few weeks for the PGA Championship. So you don't want to miss that. Guys, for Jason Sullivan, I am Phil Stiefel. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, retweet. We'll see you guys next week, and I will see you guys tomorrow morning right here on Training the AM on Edge of Philly Sports. Guys, yo, Tom Hoagie, Peter Quest, let's get some W's. Let's get some money in our bank account, guys.
Right.
Everybody have a great night.